to teach from public, private, and charter schools to homeschool and even international schools. As a nonprofit leader, Rai King served as a Equity and Learn Director for City here, New York. She also chairs the board of director for a local Brooklyn nonprofit, Read 718, which specializes in providing one-on-one tuitions to low-income students in response to the COVID pandemic. Raya recognizes a major gap in kids' enrichment opportunities and started her own nonprofit called Hands in Learning, an education group providing academic and art classes to families all over the world, regardless of the ability to pay. In addition of being a wife, mother of 5, and a doctorate student at Vanderbilt University, Carl currently serves as Chief Operating Officer for the North Star Media Group.
That's amazing. Let's give her a round of applause. That is amazing. Wonderful background. Wow. I mean, this is like years of teaching and education like you're doing it, Mrs. King. That is so amazing. So let's start off with the first question that we have for you, and that is, can you tell us more about your co-op? What is it about? What's the name of it? And just tell us a little more about it.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Angela, for that introduction. I let Shaniqua know that I am in the car. This is part of what we'll talk about, what it means to try to do mommy stuff and all the other things. We're on our way back from an apple pick.
Nice.
And the traffic was horrible, so forgive my appearance and the in and out of the technology. We're almost home, but the co-op that I started is called Hands In, and I just started it actually this semester, like in August. And I started it because when the pandemic first started, when it first happened, I, like everybody else, I found my whole life just really kind of turned upside down. My kids, their schooling, all of their extracurricular activities came to a halt, and we were really dealing with the effects of that. My children lost their contact with their friends and people that they were in dance and art classes with and all of that. And I also began to think about the children in my community and the kids that I had taught before, and knew that this was hitting them hard as well. And so I wanted to do something. I knew that I wanted to do something, but could not just pull my own self together in the spring to do it, and honestly thought that we would be done with the pandemic by this time this year. Like, I wasn't expecting it to go on this long, and once I saw that school and activities were going to be disrupted again, I knew that I really wanted to do something. Honestly, in some ways for my own children. I wanted them to be able to have a community and activities to be a part of, but really I wanted it for the larger community. I knew a lot of parents were out of work, and things like extracurricular activities are extras and some of the first things to go when our budgets are hit hard. And so it was really important to me to create something that everyone could be a part of regardless of their ability to pay. And so now we offer yoga and art and reading classes, math, science, finance. We have 20 different classes that we're offering right now, really thanks in large part to other teachers who just have a really large heart as well, and are agreed to do this for almost nothing, simply because they care about children and they care about the community. So our classes have been going on for about 2 weeks now. And what I really like to say is that it's more than classes. It's really an entire community. We have a private chat, a group on Discord, and the channels there are really active. We're planning a fall event virtually for kids to be a part of, where they have like a costume parade. As a matter of fact, the apple picking orchard with the family there, so we could just kind of meet for the first time. So yes, it's club for our community to.
I think it was it was a little in and out, Mrs. King. Are you able to hear us okay?
Oh, hear you.
Yeah, it's a little unsteady.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I'll be home in 5 minutes.
No worries. So we were just catching the end of what you were saying about the virtual event that you're going to be having for the kids online, where they'll be able to have a costume parade, which is amazing. I haven't even started thinking about like how Halloween is going to change with kids really being in house and not being safe to say trick or treat and go around with COVID, not knowing, God forbid. I wouldn't really encourage parents to do that, have to send their kids out. So how that's going to change, and the fact that you're thinking forward about what that's going to look like and already creating that space and environment for your kids is super amazing. I'm really happy to hear the great work that you've been able to do. But let me just say, you just said that you guys started this 2 weeks ago and you already have 20 classes going on with your children, and I think that's absolutely amazing to be able to get it up and running that fast. That's very commendable. So congratulations for taking that leap of faith and for starting something like that that's so needed today, especially like you said with COVID-19. I know in New York, unfortunately, we got hit really hard with COVID, and our kids experienced a huge learning loss. I know parents were trying to figure out what to do. Like you said, you were trying to get yourself together. And I definitely echo the sentiments. Like as a mom, I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I juggle with running this organization, raising my 8, and I only have one. So, I don't know how you do it, but, trying to figure out the routine, everything seems to be thrown off. And now with remote learning, having to try to figure out a new routine, so the fact that you were able to figure that out for your family and then say it's not enough to just do it for my family, I want to be able to open it up to all families, is absolutely amazing. So thank you for your leadership and for what you're doing in the community. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
I have a question, because I'm a mother, and even going to school and a entrepreneur. How do you juggle having 5 kids and being a wife to an activist and manage like?
You know what? I get that question so much. And it's really caused me to really pause and think, like, how am I doing this? Because there are days when I'm just like, I can't think anymore. Like, I don't want to make another decision or think about another thing. Honestly, so I have 5 children, but my 2 oldest girls, they're college age. So one's 21, one's 18. I don't really have to take care of them. They're home now because their colleges are remote. They're shut down, and they're honestly a really big help to me. They really help with the younger 3 a lot. They help with the dog. They cook. They clean. Like, I did. That's one thing I definitely did right, was having like an older pair and giving a little break before I got to the rest of them, because those older 2 are really a big help. But honestly, I think if I had to say one thing, um, it, that one way that I do it is I let go of the things that I thought I had to do, the things that defined me as a wife and a mother. I grew up with this notion that, I had to do all the cooking myself. I had to do all the cleaning myself. Everybody had to wear matching socks every single day. If everybody's hair wasn't done to perfection, then I had somehow failed as a mother. Like, for the first, half of my time as a wife and a mom, I grew up with those. I really had those expectations of myself. And as I started to, branch out, and I wasn't a stay-at-home mom anymore, and I wanted to go back to my career, and I wanted to go back to school and do all these other things, some of that stuff had to fall by the wayside. And so now I pay someone to braid my daughter's hair. Before COVID, I had someone who came to to my house and help me keep it clean. We live in Brooklyn, and so we have access to whatever kind of food we want, and I do takeout. And sometimes that takeout has vegetables, and sometimes it doesn't, you know. And I really had to let go of that. Like as women and as moms, I feel like we carry around so much guilt about what we can and can't do. You know, did I bake the brownies for the bake sale, or did I pick them up at the store? I'm picking them up at the store these days. You know, a couple of
I
years
love that.
ago, I'll never forget. My kids, you know, their school had an open house, and they asked parents to bring treats and stuff. And I made a quiche, and I made the crust from scratch. And I was like the most popular mom in the classroom, and they were just like, "Oh, everybody's gonna want to invite you over for play dates with that quiche." And I was just so proud, girl. I cannot tell you the last time I made a quiche. Okay, like it's just not happening right now. And I'm not saying it was easy, like it was definitely a journey. And still sometimes I'm like, oh, I didn't spend that much time with the kids today. Or oh, I had so many Zoom meetings. I was up in my office all day, and I'd only got to talk to them such and such. But then I'll have another day like yesterday where we literally stopped our work and schooling in the middle of the day and biked to the skating rink and went skating with friends from 1 to 3 p.m. You know what I'm saying? It's like I take those moments when I can, and I
Wow.
don't beat myself up when I can't. And
I love that.
that's what I found to work for me.
I'm like, as you're talking, I'm like, everything is just hitting me because I'm feeling it. I'm like, I only have one daughter, and Angela, she'll share about hers, but I sometimes feel that same guilt. I'm like, oh my God, like her hair's not done. I'm a bad mom. And I'm like struggling with this, or I'm like, oh my God, I was in Zoom meetings until like 10 p.m. And then my daughter is like, when is it going to be over? And then I feel really guilty. So I'm just like listening to what you're saying, and I think it's true. We carry that guilt around as women all the time. It's like we always want to do things to perfection,
Yes,
and there is no such thing, right? So just being able to accept that and to, again, like you said, take those moments when you have it. Take those moments, like you were able to just jump up in the middle of the day and just go bike riding. I love that, and I think that's such a nugget for parents to take away. I absolutely love that. But Angela, go ahead. I know you got something to say.
No, I was gonna tell her like I love what you said because I was just telling somebody like, look, I'm not super wife, and and for you to be able to continue striving for your purpose and your goals, but still being a mother and a wife, sometimes that's not easy. And for me, I also have two teenage girls, but I just had a baby 2 months ago. So
mm,
for me to start over mentally, it's a lot, and so when I was looking at you, I'm like, I have a stepson as well, but that's my son too. So it's like 4 kids. And I'm like, she got 5 kids and she's doing all this. Wait, hold on. So like that to me, that what you said, just to say, you know what, let me drop everything and let's just go and enjoy each other, because it's like we'll continue it's like a cycle. We'll just keep on doing everything, the same thing, the same thing. You go to work, you go to school, and you just don't have that, to have that chill time to say, you know what, let's go enjoy each other. Because
yeah.
sometimes we're so stuck on we have to do and not really enjoy each other while we have each other as a family.
It's so true. I catch myself all the time, you know, like I could literally work and answer emails and do all the things I need. I could do that from the moment I open my eyes until I pass out at night.
That's me.
Yes. And sometimes I'm like, I literally have to tell myself it's okay to stop working now. You know, like it's 10 o'clock, you're on the couch, close your computer and or open your computer, and instead of going into your email, go to Pinterest. You know, so like I do have those times when I have to force myself because it's like the work is never done. But then there are other times where if things really are pressing, the paper has to be written, you know, the meeting has to be had, and my kids saw me for a couple of hours on that day, but they'll be okay, right? Because I'll give them that time back eventually. And I personally think it's good for children to see that they have mothers who have interests and goals outside of them, right? That I love them and I'm going to give them the best that I have to give them, but I also have a life and I also have dreams. And when they see me go after that, my 11-year-old, she's the one that pumps me up the most, really. She'll just say, I'm so proud of you, Mom. You know,
Oh,
you
I
did
love
this,
her.
Mom, and you did that. And so I think it's good for us to model these things for our children as well.
Wow. When you were saying that, that was just really resonated with me too. Like just putting, like, I feel like as mothers or as parents, we feel like we have to put our dreams on hold, or we feel guilty for having dreams and for actually pursuing them. And I don't necessarily know if men and fathers struggle with the same thing, but I know as a mom, that's something I've struggled with. Just feeling like, okay, I had dreams, and then people even telling me like, you're doing too much, or you need to focus on being a mom. And I'm like, I am, but I also have aspirations and dreams. And so it's interesting to hear you say that, because I felt that struggle a lot. And, you know, just hearing to say it's okay, like for
Yeah.
your kids to see that is actually good. Now, I look at my daughter, she's 8, and this girl's like a little mini boss. She like tells me what to do, and when she's in the office, she found her own office. She has a little business she runs now. So like, I think seeing that experience of me being a woman entrepreneur has also really rubbed off on her. So I think that was really amazing. I think Mrs. King is a little frozen now, but we'll continue the conversation. Angela, did you want to piggyback off that? Because I know we also were having some of these conversations too.
Yes, like when she said, I think it was amazing just to have that time to not answer. You know, you got to answer in emails. You're waking up. You got to do homework. You got to attend to the kids. But I love when she said you're able to just see your kids grow and they see what you do. So they are inspired to do the same thing. Like, okay, mama can do it. Mama had me, but she's going and she's moving. That just give them a drive. And actually, you know, it's something because they start to have an entrepreneur spirit. So like I've noticed that, like even in my children, like, you know, when we were growing up, you know, we was taught to work and they're like, okay, you know, so you get to tell them stuff about entrepreneurship and they see you walking and running. Because my daughter was like, oh, I like it. You can do what you want to do. And she's like, my daughter's working now. So she's like, Mom, I'm just tired of doing what they telling me to do. I don't want to go to work today. I'm like, well, when you're working for somebody, you don't have that type of choice.
That's the truth.
So.
Wow.
True. I think that's also, you know, like a real lesson and that has not escaped me. I get to have a lot of the freedom I have because I am an entrepreneur, right? So I set my schedule, and I had to take a meeting the other day. It was my daughter's 8th birthday, and I was in the car again, like I was tonight, and I had to go pick up her cake, you know, and I can do that. I can go pick up a cake. I can take someone to the store. I can be present for a presentation at school when school was in, because I am an entrepreneur, right? And I get to set that kind of schedule. And being an entrepreneur is difficult, you know, it's a lot of work when it's all on you. But I think for women who are mothers, wives, you know, whatever it is that we're doing, there are few things that are going to give you the freedom that you need, like entrepreneurship.
That is like so well said, very well said. I've been an entrepreneur for almost a decade, but full-time entrepreneur for only a little over a year. And I can tell you the freedom and the weight lifted off my shoulder to be able to, like you said, show up when school was in session. If my daughter's school was having some kind of fair or something, to be able to do that and not have to clock time off or people looking over my shoulders, or like the stress of that. And I love that. And this is like my passion, especially for women of color and within the Black community, is pushing for entrepreneurship, because there's no freedom like being able to run your own business. And yes, it is hard work, right? It is really hard. Like you mentioned, Mrs. King, like sitting down and being on the computer all the time and meetings and everything else. But at the same time, it's worth it. And it's rewarding.
Yeah, it really is.
Now, Ms. King, what I love, and I want you to piggyback on something. Like I had watched you, and you said that your daughter came up with the name for your. I thought that was. I said, wow, you know, you were pondering on a name, and your daughter gave you a name for the co-op, and I'm just like, that was amazing to me. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, struggling to come up with a name for it, like, because I knew that for me, again, I didn't just want to offer a set of classes. I feel like parents have that opportunity in a number of places. And before COVID, you know, my kids were in dance and they were in art and they were in gymnastics. I didn't really know the parents. Like, it was like, I'm dropping you off, go run in, I'm picking you up, come on out, you know, gotta go, gotta pick up dinner, gotta do this, gotta do that. And so I never really had an opportunity to connect with the parents. And I knew that I wanted this to be a community of moms, of dads, of caretakers, where we could lean on each other for support. Sometimes we'll post in the Discord when, you know, someone's had a bad day or they've had a rough experience or whatever. And so that was really important to me. So I knew I wanted the name to like encompass that. And I was just like, I was really drawing a blank. Like, I couldn't come up with anything. And then my daughter, who is super creative, she said, "Hey, mommy, what about Hands In?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I was like, "That's perfect! Like, that's exactly that's exactly what I wanted to say." So we called Hands In Learning Co-op. And sometimes she even said, she was joking the other day, she's like, "Mommy, I still can't believe that you used my name." And she's like, "Shouldn't I be entitled to some of the profits?" That's what she
These kids are very smart. Like,
right? I was like, "Girl, it's called room and board, okay? You are fine."
oh my goodness, I love it. I love it. But the fact that she even has that mindset and she's thinking already like an entrepreneur, you know, like, where's my cut in this? That's amazing. But I wanted to say, like, piggybacking off of that question, Angela, when you talked about the fact that your daughter, Ray, that your daughter was able to name your organization. What are some other ways that you've been able to sort of engage your kids into your endeavors, and not sort of, because I think a lot of times we struggle with, okay, I have to do this, and then families over here, but how do you engage and bring all of those pieces that you love together?
Yeah, so I actually think this is something that my husband, Sean, and I do really well. My kids, especially the older girls, they can tell you, like, my husband is a serial entrepreneur. He's always starting something. Um, it drives me crazy, but he's always been that way, and it's just been a part of him. I never considered myself an entrepreneur. Like, I was an educator. I, you know, worked in schools, and I was happy to work under a system that was already created. That's where I felt like I thrived. You know, it's just like, let someone else take care of all of this and let me come in. I'll make it better. I'll do great, but I don't want to start it and be responsible for it. And so it's really only like this year that I've really started to own this idea that, oh, I am an entrepreneur. I was actually talking to a woman who, you all think I'm a baddie. She is so bad A. And she's one of my mentors. And I was saying to her, like, "Oh, you know, I'm not an entrepreneur." And she said, "Don't say that. Don't say that." She said, "I'm listening to you and I'm hearing about the things that you're interested in." She said, "You have all the skills you need. You are entrepreneurial." She said, "Don't say that you aren't." And when she said that, I was like, huh. And I was like, I started to think of myself differently and started to think about my skills. And I'm like, well, I'm outgoing. I like people. I can connect people together with ideas. I'm a good organizer. I'm focused. And I was like, maybe I am an entrepreneur, right? Like, maybe I do have what it takes. And so I kind of started to own that this year. But I say all that to say, I think my husband and I, Sean, has always done a really good job getting our kids involved in everything. Our big girls will tell you about everything he's ever started and how they wore the t-shirts and they helped do the sign up and, you know, all these other kinds of things. And then when that was over, it was on to the next thing. And so even with Hands In, like I said, I started it because first I wanted a community for my kids to participate in. I knew they were going to be homeschooling or doing virtual school. I knew how much they missed their friends. And I wanted to provide that space for them. And so another thing that we're doing is we're having a student council where the kids can, you know, run for different positions that they're interested in. We started some kids channels on our Discord for them to like log in and talk to friends and play video games together. And I'll tell my son, like, go get the conversation started, you know, or I held a Zoom call for the high schoolers and I told my son, like, okay, if nobody else answers my questions, I need you to answer my questions, right? Like that's your job in this Zoom call. So, you know, we try to involve our kids and get them excited and really show them the value of hard work and initiative and what it looks like when mommy has an idea and it was just an idea and to see that thing through to now it's a thing. And they have some work in that, you know, they're helping to serve on a student counselor or start conversations or come up with the name and all that kind of stuff. I just think it's super, super rewarding for them, and it gives us something that we get to do as a family.
Wow.
Well, I love to hear that because it seems like y'all like a team. This is like team effort.
Yeah.
Our own mini team. And so I love to hear that as a family, especially a Black family, because we, you know, oftentimes people, it's like a lot of division, a Black home. So, you know, this is what we've been said, that it's like a lot of division in our home. So just to hear that just the structure, the team effort, the love that's in your family. I have a question like regarding like, so how do, outside of the kids, you and your husband come together and able to just spend time? Because it seems like y'all are busy all the time.
Oh gosh, you know what, that is one area where I would say that I'm not knocking it out of the park, okay? Because and I also should say, back to the family thing really quickly, my daughter would kill me if I didn't acknowledge that she's teaching a class, you know, my 18-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah, for hands in, and it's actually one of our most popular classes. She's teaching a class for second and third graders. And then my husband, I roped him into teaching a class as well. So that's just another way to make it a family effort. But you know, my husband and I, we really have to be more intentional about spending time with each other. And COVID actually made it harder, not easier, because before COVID, there used to be boundaries, right? It was like, this is work time, you know, I leave to go to work, I come back home and work is over. Or this is the week and this is the weekend. But it's all kind of blurred together in a lot of ways. And like I said, if I'm not careful, I won't stop working, you know? And oh my gosh, sports are back on TV now. So you've got basketball, football, and baseball. My husband does not discriminate. If there's a ball being thrown or hit somewhere, he's watching it. And so, yeah, we kind of, sometimes we're ships passing one another, and I'll say, okay, wait a minute, you know, let's go out, you know, or my husband will say, hey, I'm coming upstairs at such and such time tonight. Let's watch Lovecraft Country together, you know? And so we honestly are not putting each other first in the way that we should be right now. Everything else is taking priority. But when we both recognize that we're off, then one of us will say, hey, you know, let's go get something to eat. We take car rides together and just talk, listen to music. You know, we take advantage of every opportunity that we can, you know, to be together, even if it's not walks in the park and, you know, sitting by the lake. You know, it might just be a car ride to go pick up food. Another thing that he does that's really sweet is he likes to be my chauffeur. He likes to drive me places. And so even if I have to run errands, he'll say, hey, you want me to drive? You want me to take you? Whether it's Party City or Michael's, and we get our time in how we can.
I love that. So I'm not a married woman yet, so Angela could probably attest to that a little more. But I love the fact that you guys have that equilibrium, and then when it's off, you notice it, and you're like, let's do something about it. That's beautiful. I'd love to see that. Angela mentioned being married and juggling. The other question that I wanted to ask a little bit about was the Black family and how it's often perceived as dysfunctional or often perceived as broken, a broken home. Have you had to deal with any of those sort of stigmas in your career, even though you have a whole, you know, functional family? Have you ever had to sort of deal with those views or those stigmas of the dysfunctional Black family?
You know what? I don't think that I have. In more of my struggles, and this is different because my husband is a public figure who is so well known. So most of the spaces that I enter into these days, and it's probably been this way for the last, I would say, 4 years or so, most of the spaces that I enter into, people already know who I am. And so that's a whole other issue in and of itself, because if you like my husband, then you're excited to see me. If you don't like my husband, then you don't want to talk to me. You know, so
Wow.
that has its own challenges. You know, I think that most of my struggles around that issue in particular have probably been internal, right? Like in terms of the stigma of saying I have 5 children. Well, what is somebody going to think about me? Do I have my wedding ring on? You know, when I say because if I don't have my wedding ring on and I tell you I have 5 children, what are you gonna assume about me and who
Right.
I am and who the father of those children are? Or the fact that 2 of my girls are adopted, my oldest and my youngest. They
Wow.
are my sister's children. And
Mm.
I've raised the youngest since she came home from the hospital, and I've had the oldest since she was 5. But they're brown like me, and my birth children are lighter skinned like my husband. And so
Wow.
what do people think when they see us out and about, you know, in terms of how many baby daddies do I have, you know, such that these, you know, so most of that stigma about the Black family being broken or Black women being this or that I've dealt with have probably have been internal struggles. And you know, me, as I say, drinking the water, like when we talk about it in DEI circles, we talk about the fact that we have all swallowed the water of white supremacy. And
Mm.
and how do we break those cycles and that mentality
Mm.
ourselves, you know, as Black people and as Black women? And that's some of the work that I've had to do. So like, I don't wear a wedding ring, mainly because one of the diamonds fell out right before COVID struck, and
Oh
I
God.
haven't been able to get it fixed yet. But it's actually been a really kind of liberating exercise for me
Mm.
to go out into the world without that cover of respectability, if you will.
Mm.
You know, like, I am worthy of your respect now because you see this ring on my finger, and I can walk around with all these children because I have this ring on my finger. And so that's a really personal thing for me, I guess, to admit that that's been kind of the white supremacist ideology that I've had to break down within myself. And so I just haven't been in a hurry. I'm like, listen, how you perceive me and how you receive me, that's about you. That's not about me. And I'm not going to internalize that expectation for myself. So I've never dealt with it in my career or anything like that. I've had, you know, issues as a woman, issues as a wife, but not the Black family. That's been my own struggle.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have so many thoughts right now. I'm like, which one do I start with? When you were talking about, Ray, that so I'm a single woman, and obviously I'm a single mother. I have one daughter. I used to have 3 foster kids, so very similar to you. They were my nieces and nephews. So it was three of them, and then my daughter, and they were all very young. And so me being a very, young single mother, I would be in the street with like these 4 kids or in a car driving with them. And the looks that I would get, and wait, they were very light with blue eyes or blue and green eyes. And so, people would look at me like, what do you like, like already that perception. And I, as a single Black woman, had to deal a lot with those stares, and I would internalize that a lot. And so I'm sure if there are single mothers that are probably watching today or watching right now or probably watching this video later, may have had some of those similar feelings, internalizing that, so that sense of being inferior because you're not married or perceived as promiscuous or like you're on welfare or just like all of the assumptions that we have to deal with as Black women.
Right.
But I think it's so powerful, Ray, the fact that you know, you took the ring off and you're like, look, this is just my own process and I am liberated and I don't care how you perceive me with all my beautiful kids. And that being your process of dealing with that, you know, that internalization. But, you know, it's interesting. And I never really looked at it from the viewpoint of white supremacy, but now that you said it, it makes a lot of sense. So,
Yeah, I think like within our community, we have, at least I'll speak about the community, the Black community that I grew up in. I grew up with a single mother, you know, and we have, I feel like, a lot more understanding of the different ways that families come and are made up. You know, I grew up in church. My mother was never ostracized, you know, for being a single mother. Nobody was like trying to push a husband on her. You know, she raised some of her grandchildren. I raised my nieces and nephews. Like, and I feel like in our community, these kinds of different makeups. And another thing that we understand, and this is actually backed up in research, people talk about this idea of all of these Black children who are growing up in single parent households. And what research tells us is that Black fathers are some of the most involved fathers in their children's lives, even when they're not married to the child's mother. And I think in our community, though, you know, marriage may be ideal for a number of reasons, for income and, you know, stability, all those kinds of things. I think in our community, we tend to understand that a mother and a father not being married doesn't necessarily mean a child doesn't have a father in their life. And so I think that we have a lot more understanding about that. And one of the ideas, one of the, you know, kind of principles of white supremacist culture, and when I say white supremacist culture, I'm talking about all these ideals that we have had to buy into, you know, as people in, you know, living in this country, things about what's professional, what's considered appropriate for your hair, how your family is structured. White supremacist cultural values teaches us that there is one way to be, you know, and communities of color tend not to see things that way, that there's more than one way to be okay, you know. And when we buy into anything other than that, it is often very oppressive to us and our psyche and our way of thinking. And so a lot of the work that we have to do as Black people is not just deconstructing white supremacy out there, but deconstructing white supremacy within our own way of thinking, you know, and being okay with who we are and how we show up, no matter what that looks like.
Wow. You said so much, Jay. I'm processing. Give me like 1 minute. That was good. That was really good. But while we're on the topic, one of the things that I also wanted to jump into, we've been talking about this for the last month, is the stigmas that Black women have to deal with just in general. We talked about double jeopardy and some of the other live talks, the fact that we're Black and then we're women, so we belong to these two underrepresented groups. And then all the stigmas that we just have to fight through, just internally, like you said, but also externally. Can you speak more to what are some of the stigmas that you've been fighting throughout your journey and all of your endeavors? And that could be anything as a Black woman.
Yeah, so it's so interesting. This morning I was up super early. I think I heard the dog going outside. And I was on my Facebook and I saw this article that was posted, and it was about this Black woman who had been appointed earlier in the year as a dean of the architecture school at City College of New York. And she ended up resigning, and she had done an interview with this magazine and talked about why she had resigned. And when I read, it was just like 2 paragraphs. They were 2 of the most powerful paragraphs I've ever read in my life. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to share this. And so I like spent an hour like trying to clip it and fix it so that it would fit on Instagram, and I posted it. And when I woke up a couple hours later, it had like over 100 comments. And I was like, it really resonated with people, because in her story, I think so many Black women, we saw ourselves and everything that we have to deal with when we are in corporate culture, you know, and we're oftentimes brought in. And I think we saw it even with Kamala Harris in the debate, you know, this past week, the vice presidential debate, all the things that we have to manage just to be, you know, we have to think about, am I coming off too angry? You know, am I coming off too forward? And then on the flip side of that, am I coming off kind of mammified? And am I expected to mother and take care of everybody? And, you know, because that's the expectation. All these things that we have to balance and we have to juggle. And I think for me, like the biggest stigma that I've had to overcome myself is about being, you know, the angry Black woman. A lot of times I feel like what makes us geniuses, and I really believe that Black women, like, if there's anything I need in my life, I hope a Black woman is leading it. My doctor, my realtor, my banker, like whatever it is, I trust a Black woman to do it because we just get it done. Like we right? Like we really do get it done. And I just don't think you could do any better than to have a Black woman on your team. And part of our genius and our giftedness, I feel like, is our ability to see a thing for what it is and to call that thing for what it is. And I think that we get this label of being aggressive or angry because we are willing to call that thing what it is and not really compromise and be down for the BS. And I think it makes us great leaders. I think it makes us great entrepreneurs. I think it makes us able to juggle and hold a lot. But when the world sees it, they see aggression, they see anger. And for me, I had to just say, I had to be okay with that. Like, you know, that's your perception. And I am going to come into a space as my full self. I'm going to be professional. You know, I'm not gonna cuss, I'm not gonna, you know, whatever. But if my speaking truth to power in a way that is going to make this organization better causes you to label me as A, B, or C, that's your problem. You know, that's your problem, not mine. And so when I read about that woman today, you know, and she resigned, she talked about the fact that she had worked in Johannesburg, South Africa, started the architecture program at their university there, but she had never encountered racism the way she did in America. Like she just wasn't prepared for it. And this woman with her PhD who's taught in London and Yale and all around the world, and she just said, Black people, and in particular Black women, are some of the most disrespected people in the world. And she encountered that head on, and she just said she resigned really as an act of self-preservation. She literally felt like she was choosing between her career and her life because of the support that she lacked there at City College. And it was such a powerful statement, and I thought such an indictment on this country for what it forces Black women to have to go through. And that's another reason why now I'm such a big proponent of Black women being entrepreneurs, right? And not always being forced to go into spaces where we're not welcome, we're not wanted, we're not supported. Let's build our own spaces, right? Where we can be treated as human beings and given the dignity that our experiences deserve.
What I love what you said about that, what I love about your you guys organization, especially Miss Moore and you Miss King, because not only us, you're giving kids the opportunity to have a chance that we didn't have.
Yeah.
You know, far as finances, education. I mean, even the education aspect, you know, for you being in the child development field, the kids are like very precious and they're the next generation to come behind us. So when you say like the power, you know, to let them know who they are, you know, and that's what we lack, who we are, because sometimes the confidence didn't come right away when we were younger. So now we're able to pour into other kids and say, look, this is who you are. So you can become who you are. Because we didn't have that. We didn't know, you know, and that's the struggle we have in our community, not knowing who we are. And now that we're coming into who we are and we're able to teach our kids who we are, you know, I could just see a trend of just a success. So I think I applaud you even on that, because I look at the community in a whole, like what you're doing, even the co-op, for you to say, look, we need this. The pandemic, literally in a pandemic, you're not thinking about your own family and your kids. You're saying, okay, I know my family's good and I know they're going to be good, but what do we need to solve this, not only for my family, but a community? So I think even your baby coming in, having like hands in, the slogan hands in, it's not about us, but if we all just reach out and put our hands in it and come together, because that's how I looked at it, come together, and we all have something to offer.
Yeah.
And to be able to have the kids, to empower our kids, enrich our kids so they can be better and know who they are. So I just think this is amazing. Like
yeah, it's, you know what, it's very difficult. It's a lot to run and to manage, but it is my joy. Like, I love managing this community. I love interacting with the other parents. I should be honest, it's moms. It is all moms right now, on this Discord, on this Patreon. But when it's the end of the day and I'm so tired, like yesterday, it was my daughter's 8th birthday, and I've been ripping and running and trying to work and being late to Zoom calls and taking them in the car and all this stuff. And at the end of the night, I still had to do a parent meeting for Hands In. I was just exhausted, but also rejuvenated by that community.
Wow.
There is something so powerful about people coming together with a unity of purpose, right? Like, we all know that we are here to provide this atmosphere for our children, and as a residual, also get this support for ourselves. And so I tell them all the time, because they're always like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. It's just you, because it's just me managing this. Like, I don't know if people think that because I'm a somewhat of a public figure, like I have a team of people. I don't, like, it's just me. And they're like, I feel so bad. And I'm like, don't. Like, this is the joy of my life, to be able to, I feel like this is the convergence of all the things that I've been doing and working on, from teaching to directing to leading. It is for this purpose. And so, yeah, I mean, like you said, Angela, my kids are going to be okay, right? I could send them to this activity or this school or whatever, but that's not good enough, right? It's not good enough for just my kids to be okay. I want us all to be okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go really quickly back to the whole Black woman thing, just the country being a disservice to Black women overall, and the stress and the just all of the things that we have to fight through, the stigmas, the perceptions, everything that we fight through from the time that we come into this world. And one of the things that you mentioned was owning that if I'm perceived as an angry Black woman, then it is what it is. Like, I can't control how you perceive me, but I'm not going to stop being my true authentic self. And I thought that was really powerful, because I think a lot of times as Black women, Black educated women, when we go into certain corporate settings, we feel like we have to change, and we feel like we can't be our authentic selves, or that, we're very conscious and very self-critical. So there are a lot of things that we don't say, because we're like, well, if I say this, then they may see me as this, or if I speak up, I may be perceived as this. I can't speak my truth, because either way I'm gonna look angry. I mean, you also mentioned like Kamala Harris. Oh my God, I was watching the debate and I was just like, when she was smirking, people were cursing her out, like, how dare you smirking? And I'm like, okay, so it doesn't matter. It's not the fact that she's smirking, or that she could smirk, or she could look serious, but it's because she's a Black woman, so she's so criticized on levels that's just beyond my imagination. I've heard comments like, oh, she's arrogant because she's smiling. And I'm like, she's arrogant because she's smiling, or she's confident? But what you're really saying is you don't get to be confident because you're a Black woman. So wipe that smile off your face. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that is what society tells us. That's what the world tells us. And that's what we have to fight through as Black women.
Yeah.
And it's just so relieving and liberating to hear another Black woman like you say this, to say, you know what, I don't care how you perceive me. I'm going to be my authentic self. And no matter what, I'm going to speak my truth. And I think that's so powerful. And I want other Black women that's watching this right now to really take that away, that no matter what setting you get into, corporate or whatever setting, and most of the times when we're in places, people are looking at us like, how did you get here, or you don't belong here? But to not hold back and to be you, to be your authentic self, and to speak up, because I think we also struggle with that. And, you know, just hearing that, Ray, was just like, for me, that was just, because I'm always in all kind of circles, and that's always something that I personally, to be transparent, struggle with, is I say this
syndrome, right? Like this, oh, once I don't belong here, and once they find out that I'm actually not this or not that, like the game is up. The wool will be taken from over their eyes. And you know, we all, and on the podcast that I lead with my good friend Dr. Blanco Ruiz, it's called Woke at Work. And we have conversations with some of the most powerful women of color I have ever had the pleasure of speaking with. And I can honestly say, like, this has been a growth process for me. I was always the person that was very much about respectability politics. You know, I wore pearls because my professors at Spelman told me, you know, that that was the most professional thing to do. I taught in heels. I taught first graders wearing high heel shoes because I thought that I was supposed to like this and this and this. And I actually looked down on teachers who wore their J's to school. And I'm like, how could you be wearing jeans and J's? Like, that's not professional. And so like, that was me. And so I don't want to come off like I've always been this liberated in my thinking. I haven't. It's been a growth process for me. There was a time when I wouldn't even braid my hair while I was working in corporate settings because I didn't want to be perceived a particular way. And just these last few years, I've just been on this real journey myself to say, you know what, it doesn't matter how I show up. I may have a curly sew-in one day, braids down to my butt the next day, a straight thing. Like, I'm going to force you to recognize me and take me seriously in whatever package I show up in, whether it's heels or it's J's or it's braids or whatever it is. I tell my kids this all the time: you belong in whatever room you step into. Whatever room you step into, you belong there. And like once you internalize that, girl, listen, let me tell you, like there's no place you can't go. There's no board you can't stand in front of. There's no group of philanthropists or highfalutin people that can intimidate you. Once you internalize that message, like if I'm here, I belong here. And I'm going to force you to accept me in whatever package I present myself in. I'm telling you, nobody can stop you.
There you go. I love that. You belong there. And I feel like it's the same, we've been sort of saying that same theme. Like if you step into that room, you belong in that room. Don't second guess yourself. Don't doubt yourself. Don't make yourself feel like, you know, you're inferior to the people around you. Know that you belong there. I'll share a quick story and then I have one more question for you. I think I shared this before. I had the privilege of studying at Harvard University last year for a certification program. It was like in leadership and public service. And in the certification program that I was a part of, there were a lot of mainly Caucasian men in that room. And there were about maybe say 100 of us in the program. And what I love about Harvard is they really provoke you to like really deep levels of thinking. And as we were doing these case studies, they were asked these questions and in a class setting, and I would struggle with raising my hand because I doubted myself and I was like, I don't know the answer. I don't even know what I'm doing here. There's all these white men, like, what am I here for? Why am I here? How did I even get accepted? And I let that overpower me. The funniest thing is all of the questions to these case studies that was asked back and forth, I had the right answer, but I never raised my hand.
Doesn't that make you so mad? Oh my gosh, I know.
And I beat myself up after. I was like, why were you second guessing yourself so much? Like, why couldn't you just raise your hand and just say it? And because I was struggling with like being a Black woman and being there, and I'm like, I don't feel like I'm as smart as, but honestly, I'm gonna be very honest, a lot of times you're struggling to think that you're not smart, and that the people you're looking at that you think are so smart, they're really just mediocre.
Girl. Listen, that will preach, okay? Let me tell you something. Me and my girlfriends, even some of my white girlfriends, I'll be in class sometimes and I'll be like, can you believe this man had the nerve to show up and he wasn't ready and he didn't say anything and did this? And then one of my girlfriends, one of my best friends actually, who's white, she's like, let me guess, he was a white man, right? And I was like, yeah, she was like, mediocre white men. I'm telling you, they run the world because we let them. We let them. So yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
That is like, I'm like, I have taken like 5 deep breaths after this. I feel like loads of stress are like leaving off me in this conversation. This is so uplifting. We're at our last minute, but my last question is, what advice can you give to Black women that are either entrepreneurs or looking to be an entrepreneur? Any advice or wisdom that you want to leave with the Black women that are watching?
Yeah, you know what? It sounds so cliche, but I would really say, like, believe in yourself. Like, believe that you can do this. And study the market, whatever it is you're wanting to get into, whether it's for profit or nonprofit, like, make sure you understand the trends, what's happening there, that you're responding to an actual need that exists in the world. And one of my favorite things, and I don't know if other people, believe this or not, but I like the idea of starting small and growing organically from there. Everything doesn't have to shoot to number one or, the biggest this or like, I have my husband's help who has 3.7 million followers on Instagram, recruiting people for Hands in Co-op, and I still just have 100 families. You know what I'm saying? Still just 100 families, and volunteer teachers. It's not profitable at all. First of all, it's a nonprofit, but like I'm having to like rely on the goodwill of my teachers because we can't really pay them a lot of money. And that's with me and my husband being well-known people. Like, I'm a Christian and the Bible says, do not despise the day of
Small beginning.
That's right. Yes, and that is one of my favorite things. And in a world where everything's on social media and looks like everybody's so successful and everybody's on this magazine or they're being asked to speak here and speak there, you can often think, well, my little old business or my little old podcast or whatever. Listen, start small, work out the kinks, see what needs to change and what needs to be adjusted. And that way, if you do get to the point where it's some big platform or whatever, you got to make your mistakes in secret and in private, as you do it and worked it out, and don't have to fail big, fail small, and then grow. So that's what I would say.
Wow, that is some wisdom right there.
Wisdom.
And it's so funny to me that all of us are kingdom women and had no idea. So the way that God just throws us all together is always funny to me. I love what you left with, despise not a small beginning. That was a scripture in my head as you were speaking, and I think that's just so fitting to leave with. So women, men, whoever is watching, just whatever you're going to do, whatever you're going to start, don't feel like you need to have all the pieces together. Just get it started. As Mrs. King stated, even if it's small, don't think of it as something small. You can start off at this level, but it's not going to stay there. Keep working at it. So I am just so uplifted from this conversation. And I don't know about you, Angela and Ray, but I'm feeling really good right now. I'm ready to go conquer.
No, she's ready to start something.
You got us all hyped up right now. So this was amazing. I hope this is not the last time we have you, Mrs. King. You are absolutely a blessing. I am so honored to just be able to talk to you tonight and to have this conversation. I know you blessed many people that are watching. And again, I'm hoping to have you back again soon, sometime in the future.
Yeah, thank you for your patience with me as I, moved from the car to in here. And I was like, I gotta get home. I have this thing at 7 and traffic is not cooperating. So thank you so much for your patience. And I enjoyed this conversation immensely. Thank you for thinking of me and thinking that I had anything worth hearing. So thank you as well.
You have so much to say, so much. We are so, after this, you in trouble now, Mrs. King, because after this, we're going to be all over the place starting things. So So thank you so much. This conversation was amazing. Thank you all that have tuned in. Again, if you haven't already, please share this post with those that are in your network. We really appreciate your support. Continue supporting Black women. As we've been saying over the last month, Black women are not supported. We need your support. We need to pull together as a community. So if you know a Black woman that's trying to be an entrepreneur or that is an entrepreneur, please support her. And again, thank you so much for watching and tuning in. Please stay tuned for next week's show. Thank you so much. All of you have a safe weekend and a safe holiday.